In this session, we're going to be taking a look at cluster network communication. The cluster network is automatically created when you create a cluster. Each network adapter card connected to a common subnet will be listed in Failover Cluster Manager. A cluster network can be configured for different uses. You can have different roles. If the role that you want to configure has no communication at all, you don't want any communication to be sent over the network, then the role that is configured would be 0. And this role is disabled for communication. If you want communication to be sent over the network for the cluster only, then that type of network is automatically created and the value of that is 1. So you have again role 0 if you don't want any communication at all over the network. Role 1 if you want the network enabled for cluster communication only. And then you have role 3 if you want to enable that network for client and cluster communication. As I said before, when you create the cluster, the network is automatically created and the roles are formed. However, even though the cluster networks are automatically configured while creating the cluster, as described above, they can also be manually configured based on the requirements that you have for your particular setup. We're going to take a look at how we would modify the network settings for a failover cluster if we chose to do so for our environment. We're going to take a look at how we would modify a cluster network. Within Failover Manager, we want to expand cluster1.adatom.com and we want to click on Networks. In the middle pane, we want to right-click on Cluster Network 1 and select Properties. Here we can make changes. Let's just look at the options that we have. We have allow cluster network communication on this network. If you select this option, you want the network to be used by the nodes only, not the clients. So if this option alone is selected, it means that you want the network to be used by the nodes again and not the clients. Then you have the option below, allow clients to connect through the network. If you want clients to connect through the network, you will have to select the checkbox, allow clients to connect through the network. And you have another option here, do not allow cluster network communication on this network. You want to select this option if you are using a network only, maybe for iSCSI communication with storage, or maybe only for backup. That would be the most common reason for selecting the option, do not allow cluster network communication on this network. Cluster network roles can also be changed using PowerShell. For example, the get cluster network command will allow you to change roles. Remember that role equal 3 would be the last option here where you do not want to allow network communication at all. You don't want to allow cluster network communication on the network. 0, role equals 0. If you wanted to allow only cluster network communication, role equal 1. If you wanted to allow both cluster network communication and clients to connect through the network. The commandlet is get hyphen cluster network 1 dot role equal the value of the role that you wanted to select. In this session, we took a look at the cluster network, and we said that when we create the cluster, the network is created automatically, but we can manually change the type of network or the role of the network by using a PowerShell command, or we would go to the properties of the cluster network and make a selection. This is the end of our session, and I want to thank you for listening.